Thanks to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video. More about them later.
That three, that's thrown away right to LeVert. Mitchell has his head up, takes LeVert feet. Oh my! Donovan Mitchell, an eye-popping flush.
Now, I've been quite critical of the Cleveland Cavaliers over the past couple years. Laughing at them when they lost to the Knicks, laughing at them again when they tanked their final game of the season to get matched up against the Orlando Magic and still had a tough, grueling 7-game series. And in terms of their future, they have such few draft picks to work with after acquiring Donovan Mitchell. In fact, they gave up their 2025, 2027, and 2029 first-round picks for him, along with pick swaps in every other year. Basically, they don't have their own guaranteed pick until 2030, only conditional picks. It's not a future you want to be stuck with, especially on a team with just one player who may or may not be the first option on a championship contender. There were a lot of negative things working against the Cavs. Plus, you add on, over the last 30 years, they were only relevant when LeBron was there. It's easy to point and laugh at the franchise for possibly screwing up, again. However, in all my time ridiculing them, there's a few things that I overlooked about this team. Things that were very apparent when they came flying through the gates at the start of the 2024-25 season. And this might just be the season everything comes together. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and today, let's take a look at why the Cleveland Cavaliers are deceptively one of the NBA's best teams, and how they built their team to become the league's most unexpected contender. Before we continue, I want to introduce you to the sponsor of this video, Rocket Money, the personal finance app. My fiance and I have been planning our wedding recently, and we need to keep track of our budget. That's where Rocket Money comes in to help us manage our expenses and make sure we're not spending too much. My most used feature of the app nowadays is Smart Savings. It allows both of us to automatically deposit money every month to each contribute to our wedding budget. I've found it to be super helpful to keep track of our finances, plus you can withdraw at any time you wish. However, my favorite feature of the app is that they can negotiate and lower your bills for you, and cancel unwanted subscriptions with just a few clicks. Rocket Money has saved customers up to $740 per year with all its features, with over $500 million saved in canceled subscriptions alone. To save more and spend less to achieve that financial freedom you're looking for, go to rocketmoney.com/AndyHoops to get started for free, or you can click my link in the description below. The previous 2023-24 season was marred by injuries to many players, stars across the league, but not many folks paid attention to how much Cleveland got demolished by injuries. Donovan Mitchell missed 27 games, Darius Garland missed 25 games. Evan Mobley missed 32 games. Literally 3 players in their starting lineup missed so much of the season. As a result, the Cavs finished in the bottom half in offensive rating. It makes sense considering, they were missing Garland and Mitchell for a significant chunk of the season, their 2 best offensive players. Yet, they still finished with a respectable 48 wins. Though, that's more so because the East was really bad, and it still kind of is. Still, it's a testament to Cleveland's resilience and a deceptively deep roster with players who can come in and contribute in a pinch. With a bench that includes Caris LeVert, a former 20-point-per-game scorer, along with several 40% three-point shooters like George Niang and Sam Merrill. The Cavs have a well-built roster from top to bottom that covers all the bases for their star guards to succeed. Considering the circumstances, the 2023-24 season panned out better than they expected. The pieces were there, the talent and scoring were there. They were just so injured and had so many different lineups that there was zero consistency. At their core, they weren't as bad offensively as their stats suggested.
The Boston Celtics have punched their ticket to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Now, fast forward a little bit and they shot out of the gates. The Cavaliers have skyrocketed into the league's most efficient offense. With one glance at how and where they take their shots now, it's quite impressive. 25% of their jump shots are wide open. 44% of their shots are taken after 0 dribbles. 50% of the time, their players only hold the ball for fewer than 2 seconds before scoring a basket. Like, seriously, that's very impressive. It's stats like these that show how smooth their offense now runs.
By two stupendous defenders.
Garland whips the pass away.
Here's Allen. Oh, Euro step from Allen.
The low touch time, the low dribble count shows that players aren't holding the ball that long. They're hitting their teammates at the right spots and they're pulling the trigger instantly. That's the sign of a great offense that knows what they're doing, and it's far, far different than previous years. But why exactly is that? Well, introducing the new coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, Kenny Atkinson. Atkinson has been a longtime assistant for various teams in the NBA. You might recognize him as the former head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, where they played at a relentless pace, one year even ranked number 1 in pace. Or you might recognize him as the lead assistant on the Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr's right-hand man. Kenny Atkinson's specialty is his pace and space offensive game plan. In particular, for example, things like making sure players fill the corners, a strategy that he described like this, quote, "Filling the corners is super important. You have to get to the corner. I call them corner assists when you get to the corner and open up driving lanes." Even though the guy in the corner isn't credited with an assist, just by having a good three-point shooter standing there, it opens up the lane so much, and that's something that Cleveland struggled with before. Kenny Atkinson realized that their offense runs through their 2 guards, so he wants to keep the floor as open as possible for them to flourish. The goal is to keep the middle of the court open. I call it the Autobahn. We want to go fast in those lanes. Speaking of fast, that's actually the biggest visible change in their playstyle. Here's a chart created by Twitter user Nikhil Chinchal. It shows the pace of the teams coached by Kenny Atkinson versus JB Bickerstaff, the previous coach of the Cavs for 4 seasons. Do you see the stark difference? So when Kenny Atkinson took over as the new coach, he also implemented his high-paced offense, as the Cavs went from the slowest team in the league to top 10 in pace. The emphasis on pushing the ball down the floor is perfect for this roster, a young team with dynamic athletes who love running. It's a far cry from the old JB Bickerstaff offense, which became very slow and bogged down over the years. His lack of creativity, which he basically just ran pick and rolls over and over again, and the Cavs used to have the most predictable offense in the league. If their pick and rolls failed, they needed Mitchell to bail them out. That's no longer the case, as their offense is now much more fluid, with everyone spaced correctly to be a threat to score.
He is checked in, replacing James Merrill for 3. He knocks it down.
However, as great as their offense has excelled, the foundation of their success has been on the backs of their defense. And this is something they built long before Kenny Atkinson arrived. If you've been following the Cavs for a while, you know that their defensive excellence is nothing new. 2 seasons prior, they ranked as the #1 defensive team in the league, along with having the 2nd best net rating. They were kind of overlooked that year due to, their early playoff exit against the Knicks, as the lights were too bright for their young players. However, with several more seasons under their belt, and with a roster of young players who developed together, the Cavs established a sense of continuity. It's evident in their defensive identity. For 4 straight years now, they've had a top 7 defense in the league. They know each other's tendencies and habits. Over the past couple years, when Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley are on the court together, they record a ludicrous 107.5 defensive rating. If they played all game, they'd be the #1 defense for 3 straight years.
Such a pridefulness on that defensive end. I mean, where does that grind and grit come from?
Last year, go barefoot to the block by Jarrett Allen. Get that new stuff out of here.
Yet, they don't get much credit for being an elite defensive team. Certainly not, compared to the Timberwolves. However, with the Cavs bigs, they are different kind of defenders than most other guys. They're quick and agile, they're not scared to go out further and defend from a distance. And they're great at funneling the offense to the spot they want. What truly separates their defense from others is their ridiculous size. They have 2 7-footers along with the ever so underrated 3-and-D player in Dean Wade. Did you know, out of all players who played at least 20 minutes a game, Dean Wade had a top 10 defensive rating in the league? That's crazy to think about. But he also had the most combined deflections and screen assists per 100 possessions on his team. The dude is low-key one of the most valuable, most intangible players in the league, due to his sheer hustle and effort. Nobody ever mentions him when talking about the Cavs' defense, but he is likely their third best defender, especially when it comes to help defense. A few years ago, the Cavs decided that the best chance for them to compete for the championship was to build around their backcourt of Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. There was just one problem. They were too small, and were never known as good defenders. With a small backcourt like this, the only way to cover their weaknesses is to make the rest of the lineup big, and have great defenders at every position in the front court. In fact, it kinda reminds me of the old Allen Iverson Sixers. A defensive juggernaut led by a small guard, who happens to be one of the best scorers in the league. They had players to cover for his weaknesses. They had bigs to rebound and support his playstyle to give him extra possessions. Perhaps you're laughing at me for making this comparison, but I think it's valid. The question is, how far can Donovan Mitchell take them? So the Eastern Conference goes like this. It's the Celtics who are the favorites, yet again, and everyone else isn't even close to that level. Then you have the best player in the conference stuck on a team whose championship aspirations have long faded away. It's fair to say the Cavs have just as much of a shot as anybody to come out of the East, with the exception being the brick wall that is the Celtics. It's not a bad situation to currently be in. They put all their eggs into the Donovan Mitchell basket, and so far, as an individual talent, he's lived up to that challenge. The organization told him that he was their guy, and they did a phenomenal job building a competent team to support his playstyle. You still wonder, though, how much more can he improve? How much more can this team improve to challenge the beast of the East? Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the new and improved Cleveland Cavaliers. With a new coach and a revitalized offense, they look like almost a completely different team. How far do you think they can go? Anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.